There's something inside you, something raw and persistent, that you've been trying to silence for years. It's not loud, not dramatic, it's subtle. A dull hum in the background, an uncomfortable feeling that surfaces in the stillness, in those moments when everything seems fine on the outside. It's that strange, almost unnoticeable sensation that creeps in the second you stop moving, when distractions fade and all that's left is you. It's like your mind knows you're faking it, like your soul is sitting quietly in the corner, watching you with patient eyes, waiting for the exact moment to whisper, "You still don't get it, do you?" You've gone through life convinced that control is the key, that if you just plan enough, work hard enough, think ahead enough, if you speak carefully, move strategically, avoid mistakes at all costs, then everything will work out, that you'll finally feel safe, finally feel certain, finally feel free. But what happens when, despite all that effort, things still fall apart? When even your best-laid plans collapse? What if the problem has never been a lack of control, but rather your constant obsession with having it? Look around. Really look. Watch the people who try to keep everything in order, who clutch at the invisible strings of what they believe they control. Can you see the exhaustion in their eyes, the strain in their shoulders, the way they breathe like they're holding it in, waiting for something to go wrong? Anxiety doesn't come from chaos. It comes from our desperate attempts to avoid it. Fear doesn't emerge from the unknown. It grows from the constant need to predict and shape what's coming. And how many times have you felt that pressure in your chest? Not because something was wrong, but because you were trying so hard to make everything go right. How often have you found yourself gasping for air under the weight of your own expectations, not because life was unbearable, but because you couldn't allow yourself to just let go? Maybe you haven't realized it yet, but you're trapped, aren't you? But it's not the world that's holding you prisoner. It's not your job, or your family, or your past. It's not even your future. You're trapped inside of you, in a version of yourself you've tried to bury, a part you've labeled dark, or wrong, or broken, a part you've tried to silence with spiritual jargon, or Instagram affirmations, or busy schedules. But that part of you, it hasn't left. It's still there, watching, waiting, smiling even. Because it knows something you've forgotten, that one day you'll have to stop running. And when that day comes, surrender won't mean defeat. It won't be the end. Surrender will feel like exhaling after years of holding your breath. It'll be like standing in the middle of a storm, letting your broken umbrella fall from your hands, and finally letting the rain soak you to your core. That's not weakness, that's freedom. That's the moment when healing begins, when truth steps in, when you stop pretending and start living. You don't know it yet, but your fight against life is exactly what's keeping you from experiencing it. Every time you try to force an answer, you block the one that was already making its way to you. Every time you insist on a direction, you build a dam in the flow of something much wiser than you. Do you see the irony? You've spent so long thinking control equals maturity. But maybe control is just fear in disguise, the clearest sign that you don't trust life at all. You can't control the ocean, but you can learn to swim. You can't stop the rain, but you can choose whether to dance in it or run for cover. And what I'm telling you now isn't just poetic fluff or spiritual fluff. It's the truth most people run from because it's inconvenient, because it forces you to accept that you are not and never were the center of the universe. You are not the master of time. You're not even the full author of your own story. You are here not to dominate, but to participate, to be present. What hurts is not life. What hurts is the resistance, that endless battle within, that pressure to always become, to prove, to perform, to belong. Have you ever wondered why the harder you try, the more difficult things seem to get? Why the more you chase something, the further it drifts away? It's because sometimes the act of chasing itself is the barrier. Life isn't punishing you. Life is responding to you. And when your energy is tense, controlling, fearful, what you receive in return is resistance, pressure, pushback. Life isn't something you own. It's something you live. And living isn't the same as managing or controlling every outcome. Living is daring to not know. It's making mistakes. It's freezing up. It's sitting in silence and realizing that you don't have it all figured out. And that's okay, because no one does, not really. And yet, only the brave ones are willing to admit it. Only the courageous ones are willing to let go of the wheel and discover that the river always knew where it was going. So the real question is, will you dare? Will you dare to stop fighting yourself? To stop pretending that everything is fine when you're falling apart in private? Will you stop wearing the mask of control while your true self screams in the dark room you refuse to open? Because that's the cruelest trick of all, to wear confidence like armor while your shadow breaks behind the scenes, desperate to be seen. But if you dare, if you truly dare to sit with yourself, without distraction, without judgment, without numbing, you'll discover something no one ever taught you. That peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. Peace arrives when you finally accept that perfection was never required. It comes when you no longer need your life to look a certain way. When you realize that maybe, just maybe, your life doesn't fit yet because you've been trying to build it with pieces that were never yours. You're building your life using someone else's maps, following paths that were never meant for your feet, obeying directions you don't fully understand, echoing words that don't belong to your voice. And yet, you keep moving forward, guided more by fear than clarity. You try to make sense of a world that seems chaotic, and you believe the chaos is out there, around you. But the truth is far more confronting. The real chaos is within. It lives in the cracks of your suppressed emotions, in the silence after a forced smile, in the tension between who you are and who you think you're supposed to be. And still, you chase after order, some perfect balance, a formula that will finally make everything make sense. But here's the secret. Order will never arrive while you're pretending there's no disorder. Peace will never come as long as you're busy performing calmness. And healing won't happen if you keep denying the wound. But there is a way out. Not a quick fix, not a life hack, not a 5-step plan or a morning routine. It's not a deep breath or a clever mantra. It's a decision, a real, terrifying, soul-shaking decision. Not to surrender to life, but to surrender into life. To let it hold you. To stop fighting, resisting, pretending. To allow yourself to be touched by life in all its rawness, without filters, without masks, without expectations. And that's where real freedom begins. Not the freedom that looks good in a social media post. Not the curated version of healing. Number the kind of freedom that strips you naked of everything you thought you were until you're standing there, unsure, trembling, real. And right when you think you've figured something out, when you feel like you've reached some clarity, life throws another truth in your path, one that's even harder to accept. That truth is this: you have no idea who you are, Because what you think you are, this identity you've worn like armor, is just a carefully constructed illusion. It was built with other people's opinions, shaped by the expectations you never agreed to, patched together with old pain, and decorated with the masks you've worn to protect yourself. And here comes the hardest part to admit. The more you try to hold on to that false self, the more you suffer. Deep down, you know it's not real. You feel it in the quiet moments, when no one's watching, when the noise fades. You can sense that underneath all the roles, all the perfection, all the control, there's something else, something untamed, something wild, raw, honest, and yes, deeply vulnerable. And that scares you more than anything, because if you let go of who you think you are, then who's left? Who are you when you're not performing? Who are you when you stop trying to be enough? That's when things get real, because the true enemy isn't life. It never was. Life isn't against you. Life doesn't need you to be perfect. The real enemy is the version of yourself that you force yourself to maintain. The version you've been selling to others, and worse, to yourself. The image of the one who's always strong, always capable, always unbreakable. The one who always keeps it together. But behind that image, there's a truth you've been avoiding. You are not that character. You never were. And continuing to act like you are is slowly destroying you. Not with fire, not with explosions, but with quiet emptiness. With a numbness that creeps in, day by day. An emptiness that no amount of achievements, success, or applause has ever managed to fill. Have you noticed? You've accomplished things you once dreamed of. You've reached milestones you once prayed for. And still, something's missing. You still feel lost. Why? Because you're trying to build a life for someone who doesn't really exist. And here lies the cruelest paradox. The more you try to control everything to protect that identity, the further you drift from your true self. You stop feeling. You stop exploring. You stop living. You become so consumed with keeping that ideal self above water, you don't even realize that version of you isn't alive. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't feel. It doesn't dream. It just survives. And that's the true cost of control. Disconnection. Disconnection from life, from love, from your own soul. Because control demands you live in your head. It asks you to think more than you feel, to analyze everything, every step, every word, every interaction. You become a strategist of your own life, constantly calculating, constantly planning, and in the process, you forget how to live it. But there's something deeper, something darker. The reason you can't let go of control isn't just fear. It's guilt. Yes, guilt. Somewhere inside you, there's a part that truly believes you don't deserve to flow. That ease is something to be earned, not something you're worthy of. That if you're not constantly fighting, you're failing. That if you're not suffering, you're not growing. So you keep pushing. You keep performing. You keep tightening your grip, even when your soul is begging you to let go. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to listen to that voice. Not the loud one that demands perfection, the quiet one, the one that whispers in moments of stillness, the one that remembers what it feels like to just be without having to prove anything to anyone, not even yourself. That voice knows something true. You were never meant to live this guarded, this disconnected, this numb. You were born to feel deeply, to love freely, to be wildly human, messy, imperfect, alive. And somewhere under all the roles, beneath the guilt and the noise and the fear, that you still exists. And she's not asking for control. She's asking to be seen. You were conditioned to believe that life is supposed to hurt, that peace is suspicious, that if you're calm, something must be wrong. And the most painful part? You believed it. You bought into the lie that you only have value when you're struggling, that your worth depends on how much pain you can endure while still pushing forward. You learned to associate strength with suffering, to equate exhaustion with success, to see stillness as laziness. You were told that peace is for the weak, that embracing the present is careless, that not fighting means giving up. But that's not true. You've confused surrender with defeat. You've mistaken flow for passivity. You've labeled authenticity as chaos, and none of that is your fault. You were trained meticulously, repeatedly, to believe those things. Since you were little, they taught you to hide your shadow, to push down your anger, to mask your sadness. They told you that showing emotion made you fragile, that feeling deeply was dangerous, risky, something to avoid. So, you learned to control, to monitor every reaction, to filter every thought, to second-guess every decision. You even learned to control your breathing, your posture, your presence, just to avoid being too much, too real, too you. But you weren't born to be a machine. You didn't come here to live in survival mode, to merely exist inside a script written by fear. You came to feel, to expand, to stumble and fall and get back up without shame. You came to love with your whole heart. You came to live, not to endure. But to truly live, you first have to let go of who you think you are. And I know that's terrifying. Shedding the controlled image you've carefully maintained feels like a kind of death. And in many ways, it is. But it's the death of illusion, not of you. It's the necessary death of everything false so that something real can finally breathe. Because only when the character dies can the person be born. Here's something no one has told you in simple words. You cannot find peace by trying to control everything. Peace doesn't come from perfect plans or constant effort. Peace isn't something you build, it's something you allow. It shows up the moment you stop demanding life to be different, and instead choose to witness it exactly as it is. And in that moment of radical acceptance, everything begins to shift. Not in an instant, not like a miracle out of nowhere, but slowly, gently, meaningfully. Because when you stop fighting, the conflict loses its purpose. You're no longer at war with what you feel. You're no longer trying to force things that aren't ready. You're no longer resisting what's already happening. You're simply being. And being in a world that constantly tells you to run is the most revolutionary act of all. But to be present, you have to stop running. And you've been running your whole life. You run with your mind, jumping from thought to thought, clinging to outcomes. You run with your emotions, pushing them down before they can speak. You even run in stillness, pretending to be calm while your soul is still sprinting. You run in the form of expectations, endless plans, judgments, and busy distractions, all to avoid a terrifying truth: the emptiness. I know you're afraid of that emptiness. We all are. It feels like a black hole, like a silence too loud to bear. But what you don't realize is that this void you keep avoiding isn't your enemy, it's your origin. That emptiness isn't broken. It's not a hole to be filled. It's a space to be inhabited. It's the gateway to your truth. So let me ask you something, and really take a moment before you answer. What would happen if just for today you stopped running? What would happen if you stopped trying to be right, stopped trying to have all the answers, stopped clinging to the next plan, the next distraction, the next version of who you're supposed to be? What if, for once, you simply paused? Not to give up, but to breathe, to feel, to witness yourself without the armor, without judgment, without filters. Could you do it? Could you sit in the silence long enough to hear your own voice again? Because that silence, that stillness you feared for so long, isn't empty. It's not a punishment. It's where your freedom lives. And no, it won't feel comfortable. It's going to hurt. Because when the running stops, the first thing you'll meet is everything you tried to leave behind. Your fears, your contradictions, your suppressed pain, your unmet needs, your forgotten self. But if you dare to stay, if you choose not to escape, you'll uncover something that no one taught you to expect. Your darkness is not your curse. It's not your weakness. It's your compass. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's your guide. And all the control you thought you needed. That was never safety. It was separation. A wall between you and the very life you came to live. And when that wall crumbles, when that illusion dissolves, something unimaginably powerful is revealed. You. Not the polished, edited version of you. Not the one who performs or hides or tries to be acceptable. Just you. Without masks, without roles, without fear. And in that raw, unfiltered presence, life finally begins. True life. Not a performance, not a survival game. Real, breathing, unpredictable life. And just when you think you've reached the bottom, that you've hit the deepest part of your soul, you realize there's more. Because the silence you feared, it wasn't the end. It was the doorway. It was the threshold to everything real. The true journey begins the moment there's nothing left to prove. When you no longer feel the need to justify your existence. When you can simply exist. No explanations, no defenses, no escape. That's when you finally come home to yourself. Can you even imagine it? Truly, try to picture this for a moment. A life where you don't have to constantly justify yourself, where you can breathe without questioning whether you're doing it right, where every decision doesn't feel like a test you might fail. Not because you've become flawless, no, not at all, but because for the first time, you've made peace with not being perfect. And that changes everything. That quiet acceptance, that deeply personal truth, births something no one else can ever give you. It's not taught, it's not inherited, it's not granted, it's claimed. That's where real sovereignty is born. In the precise moment, you realize you no longer need anyone's permission to be who you are. You no longer chase validation, not because it lost its meaning, but because you've touched something much deeper, something unshakable, something real, authenticity. And let's be honest, authenticity doesn't sparkle. It doesn't try to be liked. It's not curated for likes or shaped to fit expectations. It's not neat. It's not easy. It can be raw, messy, uncomfortable. Sometimes it's even ugly. But it's real. It's yours. It's the part of you that doesn't dress itself up for approval. The part that doesn't play nice just to be accepted. It's the voice that grows stronger the moment you decide to stop performing and start living. Because you can only find your truth when you finally get tired. Tired of faking. Tired of pleasing. Tired of shrinking yourself to fit into boxes you never chose. And in that fatigue, something powerful happens. You begin to unmask. You begin to come home to yourself. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That's when a real human being is born. Not the one who copies spiritual quotes or fills their feed with empty inspiration. No, I'm talking about the one who's been shattered more times than they can count, and somehow keeps rising. The one who has danced on the edge of despair, who has walked right up to the abyss and stared down their fears, not because they're fearless, but because they know there is no greater fall than abandoning yourself. And do you know why this changes everything? Because from that place, that raw, unedited, courageous place, you no longer need to control everything. You stop trying to manipulate outcomes. You begin to trust, not in some magical future, not in blind hope, but in yourself. You start believing in your own strength, in your own resilience. You start realizing you have the right to be here, as you are, without apologies. You begin to understand that you don't need to have all the answers to move forward. Because sometimes, not knowing is the highest form of maturity. If you can stand still, in the middle of uncertainty, if you can be fully present without needing clarity, then truly, there's nothing left to fear. And when that clicks into place, your entire way of seeing the world shifts. You don't become louder, you become deeper, more grounded, more still. People around you notice. Something about you has changed, but they can't put their finger on it. And it's simple. You're no longer trying to prove anything. You've stopped negotiating your worth. And that, right there, is magnetic. Not because you're demanding attention, but because you can finally give it without fear, without armor. Because now, you can see without flinching. You can stay without running. You can be without pretending. And that kind of presence, that quiet, rooted, powerful presence, radiates. It speaks before you open your mouth. It moves everything without a single word. The energy of someone who has come home to themselves is impossible to ignore. And now look at you. You're here. You've made it this far. You've stayed with this message until the end. And that says so much about you. That tells me, and more importantly tells you, that there's a part of you that's done surviving. A part of you that no longer wants to live on autopilot. A part of you that's ready, truly ready, to stop controlling everything and finally start living. Not as a poetic idea, not as something pretty to post, but as a quiet revolution, a conscious surrender, a sacred acceptance. Because surrender isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning. It's the part no one else can write for you. It's the chapter only you can live. And so, if something stirred in you during this video, a tightness in your chest, a flicker of recognition, a whisper in the back of your mind, honor it. Don't ignore it. Write it down. Not for me, for you. Or, if you feel called to share it, leave a comment below with just one sentence. I dare to let go. That's all. No need to explain. Just that, I dare to let go. If this video stirred something in you, subscribe, but not out of habit. Do it only if you want to keep exploring this version of yourself that doesn't need control to feel alive. Turn on the bell if you want these messages to find you when you need them the most. And if you know someone who's stuck inside their own invisible cage, send this to them. Don't explain anything, just send it. Sometimes a single sentence at the exact right time can crack open a wall that once felt eternal. And now, this is goodbye, but not in the usual way, not with a farewell, but with a silence that belongs to you. Because now, it's your turn. The video ends, but what opens now is not an ending. It's a portal. See you soon.